What was that?
A meteor.
Oh,
What are you doing, Evan?
I'm looking for meteorite fragments. People will pay a pretty penny for those, and it doesn't look like the meteor hit USS Cod. Hello, everybody. Wandering Curator Evan here. One thing that I didn't realize is that this isn't the first time a very bright meteor has hit the state of Ohio. For one, we've had, I believe, 14 impacts in the state of Ohio that are documented, but it's also not the first time an unexpected meteor fascinated the citizens of Cleveland. Join me in today's video where I talk about some of the past examples of meteors entertaining Clevelanders. Thank you. The first meteor sighting over Cleveland I'd like to cover is from May of 1838. In the Herald and Gazette, it reads, "Splendid meteor. On Friday evening of last week, May 18th, very soon after sunset, a remarkable meteor was seen at several different places. It appeared at Cleveland in the northeast, not much elevated above the horizon, and moved nearly horizontally towards the north. It was very large and brilliant, attracting attention by the light it diffused, although only a few minutes after sunset. At Twinsburg, also at the same time, a meteor was seen corresponding very closely with the one observed in Cleveland. I was myself at the time in the stage from Pittsburgh to Cleveland, and not far from Petersburg. The driver suddenly exclaimed, 'What a meteor!' and remarked that the brightest meteor he ever saw had just disappeared in the north. A gentleman in a steamboat off Conneaut saw a brilliant meteor at the same time and nearly in the same direction. It is presumed that all these observations were made upon the same meteor, and if they were perfectly accurate, they would enable us to compute the distance of the meteor and its height above the earth." What's interesting is that in the 1830s, they obviously didn't have cell phones or mass means of communication, except writing a column in a newspaper. And what the author does later on in the article is he asks people who had seen the meteor to write to him describing where they were when they saw it, what they saw, and just their general experiences. And what he did was he got about 20 responses from people, and he compiled that into one of the scientific journals of the day. And he more or less just argued that it was the same meteor. He attempted to track the meteor, what direction it was coming, where it possibly landed. I thought that was pretty cool. The next brilliant display I'd like to cover occurred in 1902. In the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the headline for this column reads, "Meteor passed over the city. Citizens startled by sight of huge ball of fire. Wonderful celestial phenomenon witnessed yesterday morning." And I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from that. "A large meteor passed over Cleveland yesterday morning at about 5 o'clock. A large meteor passed over Cleveland yesterday morning at about 5 o'clock. Although it was just growing light, and consequently the brilliancy of the meteor was slightly dimmed, a large number of Clevelanders saw the celestial phenomenon and wondered what it was. Meteor first manifested itself as a huge ball of light in the southeastern quarter of the sky. Then it shot across the heavens in a northerly direction and disappeared over the lake. The meteor was one of the largest ever seen in this part of the country. It is described by those who saw it as a ball of fire about the size of a cannonball. A long tail appeared to be attached to it, and from the hole were sent forth sparks of fire which remained and formed a long streak of light several seconds after the meteor disappeared. The meteor left a long trail of light in its wake, and the streak of light remained visible until growing light of day. The meteor and the streak of light remained visible until growing light of day made it impossible for it to be observed. Samuel Johnson, number 100 Russell Avenue, was resting on a couch at his home early in the morning when he saw a streak of brilliant light across the part of the sky which was visible to him through the window. Mr. Johnson is unable to describe the meteor any further than others who saw it. He says he was certain it fell into the lake. Dr. Charles S. Howe of Case School, at the time, a lot of you know, Case and Western were actually two separate schools. It wasn't until the late 60s, I believe, that Case and Western Reserve University formed to create Case Western Reserve University, my alma mater. Dr. Charles S. Howe of Case School said last night in regard to the meteor that he did not see it, but his description of what a meteor looks like corresponded exactly with the descriptions of those who saw this one. Dr. Howe said that it had been many years since a meteor the size of the one yesterday morning had been seen in Cleveland. The same meteor was observed from many of the towns around Cleveland, and reports from those places corroborate the testimony of the Cleveland people who saw it. A special dispatch to the Plain Dealer from Norwalk says that Wonderful phenomenon was witnessed by the employees of the W&LE yards around 4:30 in the morning. What appeared to be a large ball of fire appeared directly overhead and moved rapidly northward, leaving a peculiar bluish spiral trail in its wake. This wake was visible for fully 10 miles, gradually disappearing in the growing light. The final meteor sighting I'd like to cover occurred in 1939, and it was so brilliant it actually made front page news of the Cleveland Plain Dealer as well as the Cleveland Press. The headline in the Cleveland Plain Dealer says, "Meteor flashes across lake skies. Thousands dazzled by ball of fire. Scientists reported among largest ever seen, gaseous trail left." A meteor of intense brilliance and streaming fire and gas plunged into the Earth's air cushion at 8:49 last night and set excited Clevelanders and residents of the Lake Erie area and other regions to wondering what had happened. The meteor was seen as far north as Ontario, as far south as Cincinnati, as far west as Detroit, and as far east as Buffalo. Where it landed, if it landed at all, no one was prepared to say. It was thought by different persons to have fallen in Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, Canada, or possibly Michigan. The time of appearance of the meteor was placed at 8:49 by James A. Wine, operator in the radio control tower at Cleveland Airport. "It was the biggest meteor we've seen out here for a long, long time," he said. "It seemed to come from over our heads and disappear over the horizon in a due northerly direction. It lit up the horizon as it went out of sight and left plenty of streaks behind it. Although no one at press time had found the spot where the meteor landed, and although there seemed to be reasonable doubt that it had landed at all, the flaming ball of fire caused plenty of excitement while it lasted. Newspaper switchboards were so jammed with incoming calls that it was difficult to call authorities on celestial events. The streak of light extended from the zenith to the horizon and stretched almost due north over Lake Erie." "It was a meteor," explained Paul Anier, assistant at the Observatory of Case School of Applied Science. "It was a large meteor. Of course, a meteor is simply a small piece of stone or metal which falls from the sky. Some 20 million meteors fall every day, but most of them are small and are burned up by the friction without undue commotion. The fact that this meteor was seen by so many indicates it was a large one. It seemed to be very close to the Earth, but distances are deceptive. It may have been up in Canada. Chances are that it did come down somewhere." And it was correct. It was found in Canada. It was found in Dresden, Ontario. Find meteor fragments in Ontario. Farmers dig up 88-pound chunk which lit up village and caused fright. The meteor, which blazed through the northern sky over Lake Erie Tuesday night, broke up near Dresden, Ontario, and the largest fragments, weighing 88 pounds 4 ounces, plowed a hole in a field about 6 miles from the village, according to dispatches and a telephone call from Dresden last night. 3 smaller pieces were said to have fallen near the village. Dresden is about 70 miles northeast of Detroit and about 30 miles north of the northern shore of Lake Erie. One of the little zingers I like from the reporting is a section from the Plain Dealer where it says, 2 meteors made the top of the front page yesterday. The Van Meter meteor, who dimmed the National League All-Stars, and the streamliner that flashed out of the firmament some several hours later. Of course, the Van Meter meteor was Bob Feller, a Cleveland Indians pitcher at the time, who was also known as Rapid Robert, the heater from Van Meter, Bullet Bob. As you could probably guess, he threw the ball pretty fast. As an addendum to this video, I just wanted to mention that in 1960, the residents of Cleveland thought they saw another meteor. It turned out to be the Discoverer 8 satellite, which crashed and burned in the Earth's atmosphere. What was interesting about that is at the time, NASA and the United States government were saying that these were civilian satellites. In fact, they were spy satellites, part of a surveillance program that was meant to replace the U-2. They were sending up satellites in the hopes that they would be able to take photographs that humans obviously couldn't from planes, and also they were uncrewed, so you don't have to worry about keeping a human alive. So that's actually what it was. A lot of residents thought for sure it was a meteor, or they frankly didn't know what it was. It was unidentified to them, but it turned out it wasn't aliens, it wasn't a meteor, it was a man-made object. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, notification bell, and if you're looking for meteorites, good luck.